I've played a lot of Dynasty over the years, and I've learned how to cheese the system because of it. It became far too easy for me, so I had to find personal fixes that made things more challenging within my dynasties. Now, most people refer to these things as house rules. Those are a set of rules specifically made by you for your dynasties. And the beauty of house rules is that everyone's are different. They are tailor-made to you and what you need from your dynasty experience. Not everybody's going to look the same. Some people are going to use the same ones. Some people are going to use different ones. Now, the ones in this video are my personal ones, and the ones that I found the most successful. I've tried house rules that haven't worked, but these are the ones that I've had a lot of fun with that have made things more challenging while keeping the games interesting and fun. Doesn't mean you have to implement them into yours, though. Find what fits for you and use those. With that being said, let's get into my number one Dynasty house rule, and it has to do with the most important part of the game, recruiting. Only recruit guys that are interested in you from the start of the season. This is the most prominent rule that I use in all of my dynasties dating back to NCAA 14. It was what I had used for the better part of a decade. And after my first dynasty in college football 25, it's what I implemented again because recruiting is just far too easy when you have your pick of the litter. You know too much information about these players, and you're able to essentially cheese the recruiting system and make your team elite in a matter of short time. We're trying to avoid that. Let's be honest. If you're good at the game, you will win with whoever you recruit, which in turn will lead to better recruits being interested in you. This way, it forces you to get creative early on in your dynasty to build your team. I've seen others allow only players that are interested in them and then players that are at their same star level or lower if they're not interested. Now, you can do that if it fits you, but I personally don't like it because once you get to 5 stars, you can recruit literally everybody in the country. But if you do what I do and only recruit the guys that are interested in you, it takes off 90% of the 5 stars and you only have a handful to choose from. That is what I want. I want it so that you can only have a specific number of guys that you can look at. I don't want all the 5 stars to be concentrated on 1 or 2 teams, specifically your team. You have to make it more challenging for yourself by making other teams better and your team a little bit worse. Because let's be honest, like we already said, you're better than the CPU 95% of the time. So you have to figure out how to level the playing field, and this is one of the ways that you can do that. Number 2 also has to do with recruiting, and this is probably going to be one that is the most unpopular, ruffles a lot of feathers, and it's a little bit easier to do if you're playing on NCAA 14 than you are on EA College Football 25, but it's don't scout guys until you know you're going to land them. So like I mentioned, in NCAA 14, you could scout guys after they had committed, which was super nice for this house rule. It made it really easy to use. In College Football 25, you can't do that. Once a guy's committed and you haven't scouted him, you have no clue what he's good at, what he does well, what he's bad at, right? And I don't know if they're going to change that for 26 either. I hope they do so that I can more easily implement this. But what you can do, if that doesn't work, is you can go after guys initially, and then as they're about to commit, so a week or 2 in advance, you scout them, figure out what their ratings are, what they do well, what their weaknesses are. But the reason why I want to do this in my dynasties and not just scout every single player is because if you scout every single player, you're going to find every single player that fits your scheme perfectly, but that's not realistic to me. And that's not how real football works. I want dynamic recruiting classes. I want hits and misses. It makes things more realistic and challenges me every single year to recruit the best class I can. Not every single player you recruit is going to be a producer on your team, and it shouldn't be that way. You should have to backfill positions because you missed on guys in previous classes. Listen, you don't like it, you don't have to implement it, but it's one of the ones that I found keeps it the most interesting for the longest period of time and makes it so that you have to consistently build your roster and maintain it year over year. You're going to have ebbs and flows. You're not just going to get good and stay good consistently. You're going to have years that you win 12 games. You're going to have a bad recruiting year that drops you down to 9 wins one year. That's the kind of dynamicism that we want in the dynasties. At least what I want to keep things interesting. Now, let me know in the comments what you think of that one, because I have a feeling that's going to be pretty unpopular. Now, switching over to the gameplay side of things, we're going to start with the setup. And for me, it's using sliders. If you don't use sliders and you're just using the base EA ones, you're not doing it right. On top of that, make sure they're on Heisman. It's a simple yet effective way to challenge yourself in Dynasty. EA does as good of a job as they can with their base set of sliders, but they just miss things. Every single year, there's something that's not fine-tuned well enough, and it makes gameplay a little bit too easy for you. It makes it a little unrealistic. And the best slider creator in the business, the one that I always go to when I'm looking for slider sets for my dynasties, is Matt 10. I'll link him below. He is phenomenal. He stays up to date. He's never steered me wrong a single time since I've been using him, and I used him in NCAA 14. I used him, throughout the entirety of this year. He does a really good job of A, staying on top of things with new updates, but B, creating a set that produces realistic games consistently, but also gives you a variety of games. And that's the one thing that I think that playing on a slider set does, is it gives you a wider variety of games than what the base set does. Because the base set, it just feels like you're playing the same game every single time. When you're on that slider set, you're going to get shootouts. You're going to get, your low-scoring slugfests. That's what you want. You don't want every game to feel the exact same. Now, earlier today, I was doing some testing on quarter lengths and accelerated clock and how many plays you can get and whatnot, just, for another project that I have going on. But in doing so, I was playing on Heisman, and I played the exact same game. Now, there was 4 last minutes, but I had a 63-45 game, same teams, same location, and then the very next game I played, it was 28-24. It was an absolute slugfest. Now, the amount of plays in each game were a little bit different, and the way the game flow worked was different, right? But the way that the game played felt different, even though it was the same players on the field. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for every single game. It's automatically, known what that player is going to do for that game. You want each game to feel different. That way, you have to win in different ways. You can't just win scoring 100 points. And I know that's a little unrealistic in college football, but you want to be able to win that low or have that low-scoring game where your offense just isn't clicking. You got to find another way to win. That I'm telling you, that is going to be one of the biggest and best changes that you can make in your dynasty. Number 4, have greater than 10-minute quarters with an accelerated clock. I am telling you, if you're playing your dynasty on 6 or 7 minutes, or if you're using an unaccelerated clock or you don't have it turned on, you're not taking full advantage of these games. And I'm telling you, it changes the way that you run the 2-minute, which is super important. You can't just score super quickly. You have to, manage your time well, use timeouts, use the sidelines. Whereas if you're not using an accelerated clock, you can call a play and get up to the line of scrimmage within 5 seconds. That's what we're trying to get rid of, right? We're trying to make it a little bit more realistic. Now, creating longer quarter lengths makes it so that A, you can come back in games that you're down early, and B, you have to be on your toes the entirety of the game because the CPU can come back as well. It really forces you to have a dynamic football game where you got momentum in one quarter, the next quarter you don't. If your quarter lengths are too short and you're not using accelerated clock, you're either going to have way too much time to score quickly, or if you're doing short quarter lengths with accelerated clock, you're not giving yourself enough time to really see the dynamic game play or game flow that we're looking for. Number 5 is probably going to be another unpopular one, and it's don't user on defense. And because in College Football 25, you really kind of have to user somebody, only user a defensive tackle. And then NCAA 14, if you didn't move, before the snap or at the snap, the AI took over and completely controlled that player for that play, which was super nice because it allowed those players' ratings to be the main factor in how they played. It wasn't me as a user. His awareness actually mattered. That's a stat where it's super important for every CPU player, but for the guy that's using it, you could have a 20 awareness and the guy's going to be fine. In College Football 25, I think you can press the L2 or LT button. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think that auto strafes for the entire play, and the player will at least have some sort of dynamic movements while you're playing. If you don't want to do that, like I don't want to do that, I just use the defensive tackle. They are the least impactful players on the field from a down-and-out basis. You will make some plays in the run game, but a 1st and 10 run, getting a stop at the line of scrimmage is much different than being on an edge and getting a sack on 3rd and long. So I would steer clear of using anybody other than defensive tackles on defense if you do want to use her. And Again, you'll be on Heisman, so you're not going to get instant impact wins. You may have some every now and again, but just be cognizant not to abuse the user abilities, right? And really, this is for the sake of realism that you're doing this. That is why you would make this move, because being able to know, and I don't know if you guys have this same problem, but I got so good at knowing what the offense was going to do based on down distance and formation that I would have so many user picks because I just knew exactly where they were going to go with the football. And you see this in College Football 25. So in NCAA 14, it was the screen on 3rd and long, right? People abused that, got pick sixes like no other. Well, in College Football 25, they'll come out in this bunch formation if it's 3rd and long, and they'll run some sort of Seattle concept out of it. And they'll have 3 vertical routes. Well, they'll always throw it to that seam route, and if you play it and time it right, it's a pick every single time. I start to see that. Like it's just one of those things that I just naturally pick up as I play the game a lot, and it creates an advantage for me that the CPU doesn't have, because they don't know my tendencies. Even though I have tendencies, the AI isn't there yet where they can game plan their defense to what I consistently do. And so it caused a lot of games to get out of hand quickly and really become unfun, because all of a sudden, that pick six or that pick turns into, a 14-point swing or a 7-point swing if they weren't going to go in and score. So it just creates more realism and allows there to be a more level playing field during the games. It gives you a chance to lose, and at the end of the day, that's really what we're looking for. We want to earn our wins. We don't want them to be guaranteed when we step on the field. Number 6 is for the other side of the football. Do not abuse cheese plays and give yourself a play call cooldown. And so there is a little bit of this on defense, right? If there's a blitz that works, mid blitz out of the double mug look in those 3-4 nickel looks, or in those 4-3 nickel looks, excuse me, that was one of those blitzes on defense where you could consistently call that and get pressure on the quarterback and have 25 sacks at the end of the game if you ran it right? We don't want that. That is not what we want. We want you to mix up coverages. Be realistic in it. Don't always run the same thing. Just mentally take note of what plays that you've been running recently and see if you need to switch it up. On the offensive side of the ball, you have a lot more control over this because there's a lot more variation in what you can run. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about because I'm sure a lot of you do this. I cannot remember the last time I called 4 verts in any sort of game that wasn't, I was playing against the buddies, we were having some fun. The play is designed to break damn near every single coverage that the CPU will run. And for that exact reason, I don't use it. The CFB developers have done such a good job making a depth and variety of plays for you to choose from. Use that. They're there for a reason. There are so many cool designs in this video game, and will be in 26 as they've mentioned the expansion. You need to go in and find cool plays that will work for you and work for what you want to do, because running the same 5 plays is not fun. You will find plays that work better than the ones that you're currently using that you just didn't know were there because you're just running the same plays all the time. And in that same breath, you need to vary what you run. And mostly I'm talking about passing concepts and formations and passing concepts. I try not to run the same pass concept / formation, so that means that the two of them together. So if I just ran a spacing look out of bunch, I try not to run that spacing look out of bunch again until I'm in a situation later in the game where it's like 3rd and short, because I really like to run those spacing concepts out of the bunch look on 3rd and short. Gives me a lot of options. So that is what I would consider one of my 3rd and short play calls. I'm not going to run that again until I'm in 3rd and short later in the game. But then you got to realize, hey, the defense, even though the CPU doesn't, but in real life, the defense would expect that to come. And so we want to be able to avoid things like that happening. For the sake of realism, police yourself on this. Do not, because you don't have to set a play call down for yourself if you know, hey, I just ran this play. And you can really do this with passing formations and concepts because there are so many of them. Just use a different variety of them. The rule I have for myself is I try not to call 2 of them or more than 2 of them in any game. So my limit I give myself is 2. And if I happen to go back to it a 3rd time, I try not to, like, 3 is like the absolute max. If I do it more, then I'm making the game too easy for myself. Now for run concepts, I try to vary the formation as much as possible, because there are only so many run concepts that are actually in the game that work consistently. Like, I don't know if you guys have felt the same way running the football, but anytime there's a polar, I feel like they take forever to get out there, and I don't have fun running, any of those pin pull plays. I shouldn't say any of them. There are some of them that work, but I find zone blocking to be much better in this game, and I like to run those a lot more. And so, trying to vary up the formation, because you're not going to always be able to vary up the concept and have it work well. So that way it keeps things fresh, it keeps things exciting, and you don't feel like you're cheesing. You actually have to earn your plays. So, for me, how it would look in the run game is that if I'm running, let's just say I'm running halfback dive out of an I-form set. The next time I need to run a halfback dive, I'll try to do it out of, the strong eye instead. Or I'll do it out of single back, one of those ace looks. That's just something that I do to keep myself honest, to make it so that I'm not consistently cheesing with the same plays. Now, you will have your money plays, your go-to plays that you will call, week to week, consistently. I just say try to have it in, in those specific games, in that single game sample. Try not to do it too often. Make sure to give this video a like if you're going to use any of these ones that we've talked about so far in the Dynasty, or if you hear one later down the line that you like, make sure to give the video a like as well. It really helps me out. Number 7, use formations to call plays instead of play type or coach suggestions. Now, this one isn't necessarily going to make the game more challenging for you. It will actually help you and your understanding of football. There are so many people I know that I'm friends with that play this game, and they only do play coach suggestions. The way that coach suggestions works is that it takes like 15% of the actual playbook and offers that to you. And it's the same plays over and over again. Like we talked about earlier, that limits in what you see and what works, because you're not able to run it. But you're also limiting yourself from expanding your knowledge. I cannot tell you how many formations and how many play calls and passing concepts I have learned from playing Madden in college football, because I would use the formation screen rather than the coach suggestion screen. And I started doing this when I was, 13, 14 years old, because I was like, if the thought process behind it for me was that if I'm running all of these different plays out of the same formation, it's going to give the defense the same look, but it's going to be something that they're not expecting. And so I would use this I would essentially use this against my friends when I would play against them. I would be in a formation that I had run the same play consistently out of. And then when I ran something else out of that formation, they were already set up as if I was running that play that I ran before, and it gave me that advantage for that single play. So it does that. But you also learn the different formations, the different sets. So you'll learn about single back, you'll learn about ace, you'll learn about what deuce close is, right? You wouldn't know what deuce close is if you were only on the coach suggestions play, right? There are probably, 100 different types of shotgun formations. You're not going to know them unless you go to the play formation. But then you'll also be able to pick up on those little consistencies in between formation calls that tell you one being offset. When there's offset in the formation call, it means that the running back is offset the quarterback. They're lined up a little bit deeper in the backfield. Those are things that I learned through this game. Now, that's not going to help you in terms of the actual challenge of the game. What that is going to do is going to make you a smarter player, because you'll be able to create an offense that actually keeps the defense guessing, rather than, hey, they're in this formation, this is what they're going to run. It also is going to make you a smarter real-world football watcher. You'll know what offenses are in. You'll know what passing concepts they tend to run out of them, because of the look that they give you. So, that's one of the things that I think more people should do that they're not doing already. Number 8 is no hot routes, and this one's pretty simple. When you consistently use hot routes, you're easily able to abuse the CPU just based off of pre-snap formation, because let's be honest, the CPU is not rotating to something else post-snap. It's just not going to happen. So taking this away, it forces you to be smart with your initial play call. If it's 2nd and 7, let's say, you have to be able to know what the defense is likely to be in given that down and distance, and the time in the quarter for your play call. It's not just, hey, I'll go with this because I want to run it right now. It's, okay, it's 2nd and 7. There's a good chance that the defense is going to be in cover 2. Okay, let me find my cover 2 beater. That's what you want, because if you just are able to do hot routes, then you're going to see a press man, and you're just going to throw a go ball up. Your guy that has gold takeoff is going to beat the guy off the line of scrimmage, and it's going to be a touchdown. Well, if you didn't expect them to come out and press man, and you're running some sort of slant or hook, you just have to stick with it, or you audible the play to a different one. Which there are plenty of deep passing concepts that have a go ball in it in your audible section already. Or you call a timeout and you pick a new play. It's as simple as that. It is going to make you be a smarter play caller down to down, and you're not going to have those easy fixes. It's just going to make you a better player overall. It's going to make it more challenging, especially early on when you're so used to hot routing, you don't have that capability anymore. Number 9, use the no timing throwing meter. So there are 3 different throwing meters in EA College Football 25. I think they're going to be the same as a carryover into 26. What you want to use is the one where your timing does not influence the accuracy of the pass. What we want to influence the accuracy of the pass is the quarterback's accuracy throwing the football. That is the biggest thing that you can do to make your dynasty gameplay more realistic is that your quarterback's ratings should dictate how good your quarterback is. Because we can only do so much of that with the quarterback position, because awareness does not matter when we are controlling the quarterback. We need every other rating to matter. And you need to do that with accuracy the most. Because what I see a lot of people do is they get a fast quarterback that has a cannon of an arm, but the accuracies are not good. So the drawback of that player when he's the CPU is that, hey, he's not an accurate quarterback. But when you're using him and you're using the timing, hey, if I just learn his release and I'm good at it, then he's going to be an 85% completion quarterback. Now, that's a little hyperbolic, but you get my point. We want to avoid that. We want the quarterback's ratings to control what happens on the field as much as we can. And doing this allows that to be the case. Number 10, use your coordinator's playbook. Now, this one is going to be the one that you're probably going to be the most reluctant to change, because everybody has a way they like to play the game, and they like to stick to that. They don't want to change it. I am telling you, this is going to be one of the most immersive changes that you can make that keeps your dynasty fun and interesting. The way I like to set it up is that, especially now with EA College Football 25, if your coach is a tactician, you can have it be that you use whatever playbook you want for that side of the ball. So if he's an offensive-minded coach, then you can pick whatever your offensive playbook is, and you can run that. But for the defensive side of the ball, then, you have to run what your defensive coordinator uses. So you have to use that playbook. No questions asked. So if he runs a 3-3-5, you're running a 3-3-5. If your coach is a motivator or a recruiter, you can still do that if you want, because you have a guy like Dan Lanning who is a kind of a combination of both motivator and recruiter, but he's also a defensive side of the ball kind of guy. So if you want to do that, go ahead. You can still do that. But if you want to take it to the next level and you use one of those 2 archetypes, use both of your coordinator's playbook, kind of like Iowa does, right, with Kirk Ferentz. The defensive coordinator, Phil Parker, he handles all of the defensive coordinator stuff. And then I can't remember who their offensive coordinator is these days, but he handles all the play calling stuff on offense. Kirk Ferentz is just there to make sure that everything goes smoothly and be the motivator, right? That is Kirk Ferentz's job. You can be that as well. And what this is going to do is going to make your coordinators actually matter. Right now, all that they matter for are those boosts that they give you on game day and in recruiting and those motivation stuff. But why not make who you hire matter even more? And when you want to hire these guys, the playbook matters just as much as the abilities that they give you, right? It's not just, hey, this guy is going to give me X, Y, and Z in terms of recruiting. It's, hey, I now have to use this playbook if I want to hire this guy. It's also going to keep it interesting year to year, because you're going to have if you're good, you're going to have a new playbook roughly every 1 to 2 years. It's gonna make you learn a new offense, and so that you won't be able to have your money plays consistently every single year. And so, by the end of year 3 in your dynasty, your team is really good. Your offensive coordinator gets hired away, you have to go and find a new one, right? So you're looking at all the guys that are able to be hired. You find one, let's say he's got the Temple Owl playbook. Let's say that's his offensive playbook. You are now running the Temple playbook for the next season. You're 4 games in and you hate it. Your offense is struggling. You can't figure it out. It just doesn't fly with what you previously wanted to do on the offensive side of the ball. You fire him at the end of that year because your offense has taken a step back, and you find a guy that does. It adds a whole new layer of staff management, of just being on top of your play calling and knowing what your offense is. It adds realism back into the dynasty, which is really the big thing that we want here. And it makes it so that you can't just be comfortable all the time. It challenges you. Every single year, it keeps you on your toes. You start having success with a 4-3 defense. You go out and hire a guy who runs a 3-3-5 like we just talked about. The entire dichotomy of your team now changes because you were building your defense to fit that 4-3. Well, now all of a sudden, you need a big-ass nose that can two-gap, essentially, instead of, a one-tech who, might have been a pass rusher, right? Like, that guy's not going to fly in a 3-3-5. That's one of the things I like about it as well, because it just makes it so that you have to be on top of your game. Now, there are some other housekeeping stuff for these last two that I want to talk about, just, for the sake of realism. They're not necessarily house rules, but it will help you, feel like your dynasty actually is, a real world and not, super inflated, fake. So the first one is rotating the players. Your bench should actually matter. Who you recruit to be your second and third, tier guys should 100% matter, especially at your running back position and your defensive line. Like, those two specifically should be guys that you're rotating consistently, whether it's, every other drive, every couple of drives you're throwing in your RB2 or you're throwing in your backup defensive line, just to get those guys a break, your starters. A, it helps with wear and tear, and B, it makes it so that they're not, finishing the game with 95 snaps or 95% of the snaps played and 5 or 6 sacks or 28 carries when your backup running back has 3 or 4. There are exceptions to the rule, like if you have let's say Ashton Genty is your RB1 and your RB2 is like a 78 overall. By all means, use Ashton Genty as much as you want, but for the defensive line, there really is no excuse. You should be rotating in that second group of guys as much as you can, and the way that you can do it in the new college football game in 26, it's going to be super useful because you'll be able to do it pre-snap on the previous play, or there's an option in the play call screen where you can just auto-rotate, where you can go basically D-line 2, you can change out the edges, you can swap things in and out, so it's really nice, and it allows you to customize how you do it as well. And then the last one is don't stat pad just for the sake of stat padding. If you're up by 40 points in the second half, take your starters out and let the backups work. Let them have a shot at it, right? This is going to do a couple of things. And the big one is that it's not going to have, you're not going to win every single award because of overinflated stats. As simple as that. And then the other thing is that your backups, you're actually going to have a better feel for what they give you in game, so that way you can better plan for the future. Like, if you're like me and go into practice mode before every single season just to get a feel of what your guys can do, and you go pretty deep in it as well, then this may not matter for you. But if you're somebody who does not practice before the season, this gives you the option to see how good these guys that you recruited actually are before they play in games that matter, so that you know whether or not you need to replace them or find, somebody in the transfer portal that will be able to, help supplement what that player was supposed to be when you recruited them. So it helps for the sake of realism. It makes it so that you're not just cheesing the crap out of stats and just running the ball to run the ball. This also is turn on chew clock at some point. Like, you don't want to be there all day in a game that is already decided. For me, I usually wait until the fourth quarter to turn on chew clock. It's up to you how you do it, but I really recommend that if you're up by a large amount when it gets into, late in the third quarter, put those backups in, turn on chew clock, get yourself out of there, but also get a feel for what other players will be, able to play for that next season. That is all I have for you today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on your way out. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you on the flip. See you.